Hello everybody and welcome back to another Drunk Billy Flies video. Today we're doing a bit of a special request. I'm doing this for a friend. I'm going to be flying out of the Santa Monica Airport, and not quite the flight he wanted, but we're going to be using the Cessna 152 and we're going to be doing a tour around Los Angeles. So essentially I'm going to be playing tour guide for you guys as well as pilot. And keeping in mind that I am neither of those two things, especially not the pilot, and I've never been to Los Angeles. I don't really know the place intimately, so anybody that's familiar with the area, especially you, David, will probably, figure out that I've, made some mistakes or that I missed some landmarks or some important things that I should have spoken about. But I think, from flying around there quite a bit in the last year and Microsoft Flight Simulator, that I've learned at least a general layout of the land, the different municipalities, some of the more major landmarks, and we'll be taking a look at them today. So yeah, let's hop in the cockpit together and go for a flight, shall we?
And welcome to my cockpit. So, as usual, we have our Air Manager loadout, this time for the Cessna 152. Flip here so you guys can take a look at this in better detail. I have basically all the necessary instruments and controls in order to properly operate the Cessna 152. Most of the instruments are the freeware, like most of the gauges, stuff are all the freeware that come with the Air Manager, community instruments. The backgrounds for the panels I've built myself. They're based on a screenshot from in the sim. I'm sorry, I can't share those because I cannot ethically share stuff that I did not create or hold any rights to. However, the primer lever, the parking brake lever, over here the carb heat, and the fuel gauge are all freeware that I've created, and they're available on the Simstrumentation GitHub page, which I will link in the description below. You just go navigate to the SIFF file, you right click on the SIFF file, save target as, and then import that into Air Manager, and it's now available as an instrument for you to use freely. So I've got, as usual, my two 15.6 inch screens, my knobster in between. I have my Android tablet down here that serves as a center console. And we have my cockpit layout. All right, so let's get this bird in the air. So, okay, ensure parking brake is on. Fuel, select the fuel lever is on, mixture on, throttle open. Let's prime it. Give it a few good primes. Back, crack the throttle about 1/4 inch. Bring back the mixture. Turn on my battery. My bacon light. Bacon. And we're good for a start. There we go. We have ignition. Mixture full. Pull back to 1000 RPMs. Alternator on. Avionics switches on. This little switch panel back here, down here, is just for show, really. It doesn't do anything. I mean, it works. Some of the stuff works, like strobe lights, and it actually will work. I just don't have it. I just don't use it. I just have it there just to fill some space. All right, switch back to main view and enable my track IR, and I hope it doesn't mess up my frame rate too bad for video. Video doesn't seem to like to track IR very well. I had one user in a previous video comment about settings for track IR to make it work better for video. It helps. It's still a little jerky for the video capture though. I think I'm just throwing too many recording sources at OBS here for the most part, but oh well. So anyway, we're at Santa Monica, and let's take a little tour around Los Angeles. I'm going to not bother getting flight following for this flight. I'm just going to get all my clearances on the ground to take off. But after that, I'm just going to ignore everything else, just so we can have a nice little flight. So let's see, ATIS 119, yep, 15. Go. I noticed that the indicators on my audio panel have been broken in the 152 since Sim Update 6. It'll be about 30.1. Exactly. Runway 21 works for me. Oh, shush. Okay, so Santa Monica ground 1219. So let's get an east departure. So I have an old, you can't see it from the camera angle here. I have an old Belkin Nostromo N50 controller with 10 keys strapped to the side of my mount here, and I have all my ATC commands programmed to it.
Santa Monica ground, Cessna Charlie Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, ready to taxi east departure with Tango. Cessna Charlie Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, taxi to and hold short of runway 21 using taxiway Bravo Bravo 5. Contact tower on 120.1 when ready.
Okay, that's on. Stand by.
Taxiing hold short runway 21 using taxiway Bravo Bravo 5 Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
I also have ATC commands 1 through 4 programmed directly on my yoke. So my my elevator trim is, the power trim is both up and both down for the 2 thumb switches here. You can see in my cockpit over here. But if I do the individual switches, 1, 2, 3, 4, paired with my trigger, that gives me ATC commands 1 through 4, because 90% of the time, those will be the commands I need. And when I need extras, I have all the ATC commands on my Belkin Nostromo. All right. So, ready to go here. So, nav lights, taxi lights. Release the brakes. Go chop up this homie over here. Because the ground crew just can't get out of the way. Sorry, brother. You asked for it. There we go. I'm using the freeware KSMO Santa Monica Municipal scenery pack available on flightsim.to. I don't know who makes it off the top of my head, so forgive me for not being able to plug you correctly, dude. I just don't know offhand. But I quite like it. I've never been here. I don't know this area, so I don't know how realistic it is. I just know it looks a lot better than the autogen scenery, so that's what matters in the end to me. Okay, 3.
Santa Monica Tower, Cessna Charlie, Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, ready for departure to the east at runway 21.
Altitude mode, lights on, don't need flaps.
Departure to the east approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 21.
Okay, nothing incoming,
Cleared for takeoff runway 21.
nothing on the runway.
Tango Foxtrot.
On the center line. Whether I can maintain center line or not is another question, but lower speeds alive, 55, and rotate. And this little plane just jumps right off the runway. Runway heading. Going to keep this coordinated as I climb. Apparently I'm not doing a very good job. The Santa Monica Pier over there. I'm going to try to be as tour guidey as possible here, but bear in mind I'm not from this area. I don't know it very well. Or is that the Santa Monica Pier over here? I might have made my first tour guide mistake. Level out at around 1,500 feet. Put that down there. Interesting. And we're off. Clean it out. I got a little more altitude than I intended. Okay, landing and taxi lights off. Now for the fun of trying to trim this thing. Some speed here. There we go. Trimming these Cessnas can be quite a chore. Not a real pilot, but I know it's not this difficult in real life. All right. I believe that's the Veterans Administration. Over here we have UCLA. I'm about 90% sure, judging by a sports field over there, I would say that's likely correct. Yeah, so I'm not, like I said, I'm not from this area. I do fly here often, so I know some of the landmarks and some of the general areas and stuff, but like we have Century City over here. Looks like a golf course to the other seat. I don't know if it's a park or a golf course. It's kind of hard to tell.
Santa Monica Tower, Cessna Charlie Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, frequency change.
And we are coming over West Hollywood. And the beautiful Hollywood Hills. When the photogrammetry is working properly and everything doesn't look like a melted post-apocalyptic landscape, Los Angeles looks fantastic. I mean, even zooming in significantly from this altitude, there's a building that looks a little rough there, but for the most part, it's all very, very passable. And Beverly Hills over here, just back behind us. Go over there in the distance, we can see the Hollywood sign. I've lost some altitude here. Let's power up, gain some of that back. I use a scenery enhancement pack for Los Angeles. That's also freely available on flightsim.to. The Hollywood sign in the default scenery for the sim looks kind of bad, and you don't start seeing it until you're basically right on top of it. This really helps enhance the area. Plus, I guess it adds a few missing buildings from the downtown area. But mostly you can actually see the Hollywood sign from quite a distance away. Definitely a very famous view. And let's not become a famous view and splat into the side of the mountain. This way a little bit. And if I'm not mistaken, this is Universal Studios. Keeping an eye out for other planes here, even though they have absolutely no impact on me whatsoever. Back. This is quite beautiful. It's pretty amazing when you see how it's so lush and green on this side of the valley and so arid on the other side. Yeah, we have Burbank back there. We have Bob Hope Airport. I actually have the add-on for that one as well, since I fly around this area a lot. We have our shadow down there following us. And over here, well, this should be the Los Angeles Zoo. Coming up here on Atwater Village. We're going to swing over Atwater Village down to the Elysian Valley. Glendale over here off the left wing. Atwater Village looks like a nice area from the air anyway. I don't know what it's like on the ground. Oh yeah, and out here we have one of the famous canals through Los Angeles that many a car chase scene have been filmed on during the dry times, including the famous Terminator scenes. And here we go, Elysian Valley. Now let's make a turn here. We can go back this way over East Hollywood. Then we'll go swing over downtown LA. Yeah, in real life, I would completely be getting a flight following here because this is very, very busy airspace. Wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now. Up ahead here, we have Mount Hollywood. And I'm almost ashamed of this, but I don't know what that observatory is called. Normally, that shouldn't be a bad thing for somebody that's not from this area, but I am an amateur astronomer and astrophotographer. I've been for the last 20 years. Dark Arts Astrophotography, by the way, if anybody cares to check it out. I have a YouTube channel, Facebook page, Instagram page. But yeah, I don't know what this thing is called, and I should, just by virtue of it being an observatory. Alright, let's swing around here and sharp turn. And we'll swing over to the downtown area. I have to say, the first couple of times I started flying around here, I was actually kind of surprised that I expected a lot more tall buildings in Los Angeles that spread out a lot further, rather than just like, you know, like small concentrations of them, like, you know, downtown LA over here, Century City back there. It kind of surprised me to see this. I mean, I guess it's the same in many downtown areas. I just expected to see more, just because of the sheer size of Los Angeles. Expectations did not match reality. But hey, what do I know? Like I said, I've never been here, so. Although the size of it still blows my mind how large of an area this is. And this is population as far as the eye can see. This is coming from a guy who originally grew up in a town of, what, at 4,500 people? Then spent my teenage year living in a little country village with a population of a whopping 500-ish people. before finally landing in what's a, well, a large, by Canadian standards, a large-ish city, being Ottawa. Not one of the biggest by any means. And now where I live, the town is, you know, population 130, 140,000 people, so seeing urban sprawl of this magnitude is not something that's part of my daily life. The photogrammetry of the downtown here looks really, really nice. The textures are good. The buildings are nice and sharp versus anything looking melted or deformed. I mean, you know, you'll have some textures every now and then that are a little bit off. Photogrammetry being what it is. There's also the more reflective buildings where you would be seeing the reflections of other stuff around them while you're seeing a photograph of the reflection, so it's not dynamic and moving as it would be in real life. Like we would be seeing the reflections of all the other buildings shifting on the front of those skyscrapers. Whereas now we just see it static. Still looks good, but meh. But it is what it is. This is still by far the most realistic recreation of Los Angeles in any flight simulator. And it's all automatically generated. Looks like a building that's being in construction. It doesn't have the cranes on it, but not modeled anyway, but they are. You can see them as part of the textures. I like that with the track IR, I can lean right out the window. It's kind of funny. And here we have Angelina Heights. Field over here. We'll go over here and connect with the Santa Monica Freeway. Follow that back to Santa Monica. Nicely coordinated turn. There we go, Santa Monica Freeway. One of the busiest highways in North America. I'm sure anybody who drove this thing on any type of regular basis would be tickled pink to see only this little traffic on it at this time of day, as it would be mid-afternoon right now. Mid-city at the moment. We'll hop over on this side of the freeway down towards Culver City, which is just off our nose here. Right on the other side of that hill. This, I always wondered what this is. Just like this big, like, very, very sandy looking area that looks like it has pathways and trails and stuff. Like, what is this area? Anybody can tell me what this area is we're flying over? I'd much appreciate knowing, because, like, what is it? What's its purpose? It just seems like out of place in the middle of a city like that. And there's the airport, just over here. And we have LAX just over here. Power a little bit, get down to pattern altitude. Chances are they're going to have a left traffic. The pattern at 1,000 feet. Call up full stop landing.
Santa Monica Tower, Cessna Charlie, Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot is 2 miles south, 1,300 feet with Tango to land. Cessna Charlie, Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Santa Monica Tower. Altimeter 30.09 with 228 at 8. Fly left traffic runway 21. Enter left traffic runway 21, Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
high still. Got the right distance. Let's get running parallel to the runway. Notch of flaps.
Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot with 228 and 8. Cleared to land runway 21. Cleared to land runway 21, Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Use throttle, carb heat on. Second notch of flaps. Watch my speed. Alright. Make my base leg. That'll bleed some speed right there. And some altitude. Here for base. Last notch of flaps. Turn final. Shot a bit, that's okay. Good. Altitude is good. Speed is a little slow. Good glide slope. Happy lights are looking good. Flaps all the way down. Carb heat on. Lights are on. I have my clearance. I'm good to land. Oh, a little bit low. There we go. A little bit slow, actually. Making the plane a little bit harder to control, but that's okay. I should not have this much authority over my controls at this speed. Well, I didn't get a center line, but I'd consider it an acceptable smooth landing. Go. 1219er.
Going to 121.9er, Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Carb heat off. Clean up the plane. Turn off my strobe, taxi and landing lights. And switch to 1219er and get my instructions. Option 2.
Santa Monica Ground, Cessna Charlie Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Request taxi to parking. Cessna Charlie Oscar Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway Bravo Tree Bravo. Taxiing to general aviation parking using taxiway Bravo Tree Bravo Cessna Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
I should have had it at 1,000 RPM idle, but I didn't. Performance always gets choppy when I get down on the ground after flying. It was a lot better than this taking off from this very location, but now it's choppy on arrival. Seems like performance decreases as you fly. Let's see, no vehicles coming. There's a lot of these vehicles that come flying down these routes, so I gotta be careful. Not that it matters in terms of crashing in the sim, because it doesn't, but you know, it's good to be careful nonetheless. And there we go. Sloppy parking job. Brakes on. Nav lights off. Mixture off. Fuel valve closed. Prop stops. Magnetos off. Beacon light off. Avionics, master battery, and alt off. And that's the end of the flight, folks. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope you enjoyed the flight, and we'll catch you next time.